Hello everyone, today's topic will be concurrency in React and how you can mark some specific updates as not urgent in order to improve performance of your web app. I will start with the Create React App template project, and I already started it in the browser. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to rewrite this function to the arrow function. And now I would like to create a state that will be frequently updated with the user interaction. I will remove this link from the template, and the first thing that came to my mind was tracking the mouse position. So I will create a state mouse coordinates and set mouse coordinates as a method to update the state, and I will use useStateHook. And the default value will be an object with an x and y both equal to 0. Now when the app component is mounted, I would like to add an event listener and update the mouse coordinates. I will add useEffectHook with an empty dependency array, and here I will select the body element. And now when I select the body element, I will attach the mouse move event by calling addEventListener method. And I will also pass the callback function. And also I would like to clean up the event listener when the component is unmounted. That cleanup will be called in the returned function from the useEffect. So I will also select the body element and call remove event listener method and pass the event name, which is mouse move. So since I need to pass the callback function on both places, I will move it outside of the event listeners, and I will create a separate function which will be named handle mouse move, and I will pass it to the add event listener and remove event listener methods. So when the component is unmounted, the mouse move event will be detached from the body. So handle mouse move will have event object as an argument, and here we will have access to the mouse coordinates. So I will use set mouse coordinates method in order to update the state, and the x will be equal to the client x property of the event, and y will be equal to the client y property of the event. We can also destruct the event object in the argument of the function and access these properties directly. So it can look like this. Now let's display mouse coordinates in the template. I will remove this part of the paragraph, and I will just display x and y values of the state. Now let's open the browser to see how it works. So you can move the mouse to different corners in order to see how the coordinates are being updated. I will create another component with a name preview, and it will be like a mirror box of the screen, and it will show where the current mouse position is. For now, this component will just return an empty div, and I will export this component. Now let's add some styles, and I will just add inline CSS for that. So the width will be fixed and it will be 400 pixels, and the height as well. I will set the position to relative because this div will contain another element that will have an absolute position, and that element will be a span. This span element will represent the cursor of the mouse, And this span element should be proportionally displayed at the same place as the mouse cursor is on the screen, but inside of the div box. So it will be like a square of 8 pixels, and it will have a background color set to red, so that we can easily spot it inside of the preview box. So let's set the position of the mouse preview, and in order to do that I will need the position of the mouse cursor, and I will have X and Y as an arguments. And for the top position I will calculate the proportion by dividing Y with the inner height of the screen and multiply it by the height of the current box. And for the left position I will divide X with the width of the screen and also multiply it by the width of the preview box, which is also 400 pixels. Now let's go to the app component and import preview component, and I will also pass X and Y values. And let's open the browser and refresh the page. You will see a red square following the mouse cursor position. We can also add a border to the wrapper element in order to emphasize the boundary of the preview box. And now we have a nice mirror. Now let's make this preview component really complicated and add some large amount of data in order to make rendering really a hard task for our React app. So I would like to display thousands of square elements inside of this preview, and I want to make them have a random color background. So I will set display of the wrapper element to be a grid, and above the component I will declare some constants, and for the number of cells in a single row I will specify that I want 200 of them, and each cell will be 2 pixels wide. Total number of cells inside of the preview box will be number of cells in a row squared. So it will contain 4000 items. And for the grid size in pixels, it will be the same as the current one. It will be 400 pixels, which will be equal of the number of cells in a row multiplied by the cell size. Now I can replace width and height to match the grid size pixels variable. And now I will display all 4000 cells inside of the preview box, and I will use a simple trick in order to make an array out of the total number. And now I will use a map function in order to iterate through the array. So I will iterate through the array, and for each item I will display a span element, and I will also have an access to the index, so I could use it to set the key value. And I would like to set a background color, which should be a random color every time the component is rendered. So I will create a function to generate the random color, and I will create it above the component. So we need to make a random number for the hexadecimal, and then to convert that number back to hex with the toString method. If you need some extra explanation, you can search it on Stack Overflow. It is a broadly used function and you can easily find a good explanations and sources. You can also copy this part of the function and paste it inside of the browser's terminal in order to see the returned value. Now let's make our grid items properly displayed by setting grid template columns property. We will use a repeat function and specify the number of cells and the size of the cell. And great, it looks like an old TV losing a signal. So if you move your mouse cursor over the screen, you will see how the coordinates are being updated not so smoothly. And we reached the point where we can use a useTransition hook in order to make a better performance for this specific situation. I'm going to create another state which will be exactly the same as the mouse coordinate state, but I will call it preview mouse coordinates in order to make a difference. And the default value will be the same, and I can even create a variable for that, so I can just pass the variable. It will be called default coordinates, and x and y will be equal to 0. Now inside of the handle mouse move, I will call set preview mouse coordinates and update this state. And I will also pass the same properties. We could also optimize this object by creating a separate variable, but I will leave it for the next time. Now we are going to use useTransition hook, and it will return an array of two values. The first one will be isPending value, which will show us if the transition is in progress. And the second one will be a startTransition method, which we are going to call in order to defer update of some specific component state. And in this specific example, I would like to mark preview mouse coordinates as a low priority state. So startTransition will first wait for other states to be updated, and then it will run updates of the state inside the callback function. So let's pass the preview mouse coordinates to the preview component and see how it works in the browser. You will see that the red dot is stuck in the same position as I move the mouse around the screen. And as soon as I stop moving the mouse, the red dot will get an updated position. But we still have a heavy rendering of the 4000 squares, which can be optimized by using isPending. So I will pass isPending to the preview component, and there I will conditionally render these cells. So if we are not pending for the new state update, we are going to display these 4000 cells. Now as we are moving the mouse around, the colorful squares are not going to be displayed. And the red dot will update its place when I finish moving the mouse. We can also display a loading label instead of the red dot. So I will wrap the red dot and the rest of the dots under the same wrapper element. In this case, that will be a fragment. And I will copy the iteration and the red dot as well. Now nothing is displayed as I'm moving the mouse. So I will just need to change the condition and in case of the pending value, I will display loading text. So the mouse coordinates are being updated consecutively and the preview coordinates are waiting their turn to get an update since they are marked as a lower priority state. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that it helped you with better understanding of the useTransition hook. Cheers!